the crux of effective grant writing. So in this video, I will share some of the tips and tricks that I have been using for increasing the likelihood of the grant application to get selected. So by the way, what is grant? Usually it's called, project, isn't it? Project proposal writing, and also the research proposal, right? And it's not just for the grants per se. It's not just for the research grants, right? As a young faculty, you might be more interested to apply for the research grant, but also the tips I'm sharing is also applicable also for a PhD student or even an MSc student who is trying to get a PhD position, right? When you're applying, they will ask you, what is your research statement? So, statement of research, it's quite same. Also trying for an internship will ask you a write-up for the internship. That is also pretty similar, right? And also proposal for a PhD position. So the tips are universally applicable across all these applications. Okay, so before sharing my tips, who am I to share my tips on you? So what is my credentials? So basically, I'm from Central University of Punjab. I'm working here as a professor, as also the head of the Department of Botany. And as you can see, till date, I have won so many projects. I've been working here for the last 13 years. And as you can see, 7 major grants which I got from various agencies here in India, including DST Inspire Award, UGC BSS Startup, Ministry of Earth Sciences DFS program, Research Seed Money, ICSSR, that is basically humanities. So one among, I would say, rare science faculties winning a humanities research grant. ICSR, by the way, is the major humanities grantor in here in India. And CSAR sponsored research scheme and DST SERP core research grant. So all these grants which I got, total amounting to 154 lakh, basically 1.54 crore for the 7 grants, major grants. And so you might wonder, this ICSS, is it really a major grant? Yes, for the humanities, it is indeed a major grant. Okay. In addition, I also won several academic grants too. So, Science Academy Refresher Program, I conducted many such program, lecture workshop, and also a grant from MOOC development. Swayam, UGC Swayam program, 13.5 lakh grant to develop the MOOC. I have my own MOOC running now in the UGC Swayam for the last 4 years. It's called Biostatistics and Mathematical Biology. Okay, and I also won another major grant from the DST Vigyan Prasar for developing a TV series on mysteries in science. It has already been completed last year, so you can check it out. So altogether, this 9 grant plus the earlier 7 grants, 2.16 crore is a total turnover. So yeah, I have been immensely lucky in one sense that I got so many projects. And in addition, I also served in a program advisory committee, PAC of SERB early on. And also I reviewed several projects from ANC, France, International Project Review Committee. ANC is basically, ANR is basically the biggest funders in French government. And I also reviewed projects from the Hungarian government to National Research, Development and Innovation Center. Several grant proposals I reviewed. So what are my tips? So first is some general tips. Tip number 1 is be intentional. Okay, so don't just submit the proposal or grant writing just for the sake of submission. No, it doesn't work that way. You really have to spend considerable focused time developing a very interesting proposal. That is why my first tip is be intentional. You really need to spend some time on it. Okay, and don't wait till the grant call comes. So if the grant, you're just seeing the grant call and the deadline is just 2 weeks from today, then leave it. Don't even try to submit it. So instead, mark it in your calendar as a recurring event. So when this grant call came in this year, you can expect same call in the next year. So spend at least a few months on developing a winning research grant. That's really important. Second is that do prior research on the types of grant that might get selected. So check out the funder's website to see that last year who got selected, which are the titles at least, that got selected. That gives an idea to you what kind of titles are the likelihood of getting selected is very high. At least for the last 2 years, you have to check. And also check the funder's website, whatever be the priority fields, you know, and also what are their mission and vision. So if you can align your proposal to the mission and vision of the funders, I'm saying that generally, okay, the funder need not be government of India or Kerala government, or any of the state government, right? It could be private sector too. There are several calls coming from the private sector, and also there are several international call, you know. So, for example, National Geographic, if you are doing some kind of exploratory research, National Geographic can fund your program, or Gates Foundation, you know so Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation also do spend, fund several grant applications. So you can check out their priority field, and if you can align your proposal to what they are actually looking for, what is very dear to them, their cause, their motivation, then the chances is very high. And also, if you're writing the proposal, if the proposal falls into sustainability, for example, or environment, or whatever be, but if you can relate that, for instance, if you're an economist watching this video, and if you're interested to develop a proposal on economics, right, whatever be that title is, if you can align that into the UN sustainable developmental goals. So there are 17 goals, for instance, poverty alleviation or zero hunger, food security. So if you can relate something and be explicit that your proposal is going to address number 3, 6, and 8 of 17 USD SDGs, that is going to significantly increase the impact of your proposal. So that is one of the good tip I would like to share. So yeah, make note of these tips and try to include these UN SDGs in your proposal. That will definitely increase the impact and value of your proposal. Okay. Next is that to start with the tabula rasa. Tabula rasa is like the blank slate or the blank paper. Just open up a notebook or just a A4 sheet, and then, try to brainstorm on the kind of proposal that you would like to develop, right? You can develop a structure or the skeleton of your proposal in your mother tongue. So we all are comfortable thinking in our mother tongue, right? My mother tongue is Malayalam. So of course I like to think in Malayalam. Then while developing the proposal to the complete proposal, of course you can type it down in the English, right? So yeah, in the mother tongue you can brainstorm, right? So whatever the wild ideas that you have, you can just put it all these ideas. It's the so-called differentiation. Then you can integrate into what you really want to put. All these are tips of the brainstorming. In case you are more interested in these kind of things, no, the how to do all these things, so you can check out my new book, Life Skills. Okay, so brainstorming is one of the topic that I expanded vastly in that book, right? So once you develop the skeleton, you can expand that into the English. You can type it down into the computer software, right? And also read the formatting guidelines properly. So deviations are not tolerated at all. So it could be font, and it could be font size, right? And also justification or whatever be, right? And is it going to be on the one page or both sides? All these things are minute requirement. But see, the first people who are going to shortlist your proposal are not scientists. They are clerks, So clerically, they will be checking your eligibility. And have you submitted right before the deadline? Or even, few seconds after. Nowadays, all the proposal submission is online. So in case you cross the deadline, even by few seconds, they can technically invalidates your application. So beware of all these things. Okay. uh, Deadline, and also word limit, yeah, and also pro forma, right? So and then you can develop it. And it's always better to develop a short and sweet proposal rather than simply writing badly written proposal with that's stretched like rubber, you know so with a lot of nonsense fillers. So that is really irritating kind of proposal. Yeah, they mostly copy paste. Of course, plagiarism is not accepted, as you know. And nowadays, with the advent of ChatGPT, there is no problem using ChatGPT for the first draft. When you develop a new proposal, of course you can get the tips from ChatGPT on which are the how to make this first draft. And of course you need to completely change the first draft, but can gives you an idea about how the whole proposal is looks like. Okay, of course you have to rewrite it. And yeah, double check for the plagiarism. You can use Turnitin or Urkund, or my favorite is Grammarly, right? You can search the plagiarism using these softwares. Okay, and also double check the grammar. It's very, very important, right? None of us are native speakers of English. Yeah, so double check the grammar, and also copy edit the document. And also consistency is like the abbreviation. If you're using some abbreviation, then stick to that abbreviation, like DNA or D.N.A. Some places you're making one types of abbreviation, sometimes there is no abbreviation. No, that is not consistent, right? And also proofread it, right? Many times you can proofread it, and a trusted colleague or your family member, you can ask them, you can request them to proofread it for you. So an independent proofreading is always add the value to your proposal. Okay, and so as I was telling you, yeah, zero plagiarism is extremely important, and Grammarly is a good software for grammar, consistency, spelling, and copy editing. And nowadays, all these things are already built into the Office 365. If you're using Office 365, the latest version do have all these things, including the grammar. Advanced grammar checking versions are already there in the Office. And a few other tips are: avoid controversial topics or the topics which are against the government interest, in case you're applying for the government of India, for instance, or government of the state. And if you're proposing something which is directly contradicting the government's interest, the chances of getting it funded is very low. Okay, so be smart and be aware of this important point. And these days there is a tremendous interest in interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary topics. Inter and trans, of course, is kind of like synonym, but again, interdisciplinary is like within a big domain like science you're collaborating, while transdisciplinary is much vast, a scientist collaborating with a humanity researcher, right? So yeah, so that kind of proposals are going to have bigger impact. You might have read NEP 2020. So trans and interdisciplinary research is way to go in it is basically one of the key priority fields of government of India, especially the education ministry. And also multi-institutional collaborative research do have an edge over one institute and one PI. So try to have a co-PI in case the funder allows you, and try to have a co-PI from another institute. So that is going to have positive impact on your grant application. And try to find applications or utilities or policy recommendations, even if your proposal is basic, so-called blue skies research like paleontology or evolutionary biology or taxonomy. My kind of interest is blue skies research. They don't have much of the applications. But even if there is no application, the taxonomic work, for example, I'm working with seaweeds of India. So if I'm proposing a taxonomic study of seaweed, chances are very low to get it funded. So instead, I add a little bit of the applications to it, right? So for instance, the anti-cancer compound screening of the seaweed, then my chances of getting funded has tremendously increased. Of course, that depends upon the grant call. There are few grant calls which are blue skies specific. For instance, DST DFG blue skies grant call. The German agency is called DFG, Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft. And ICOP tax is another. It is basically the taxonomy network here in India. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So if you're applying for such specific grant call, then this kind of justification is not required. But if you're applying to a DST core research grant or SERB, CRG or UGC grant or whatever the startup grant, then this kind of application makes sense. It increases the value of your proposal tremendously. It also includes some pilot or preliminary studies that is going to be substantially increasing the value of your proposal. Preliminary studies or pilot studies, so it pays that you wait for the preliminary studies to be conducted before even submitting the proposal. you know so just hold on and do try to get some data. For instance, if you're proposing a large scale biodiversity assessment, you can confine your study to a very small scale, generate some DNA barcodes, and then you can include that data into your proposal. In one way, the reason why the preliminary studies is important is that it shows that it works. Your methodology is working fine. So funders will be more than happy to see that whatever you're proposing to do is already shown that it works. And another reason why pilot studies are important is that it aids in arriving the required sample size statistically. I'll come to that point in a short while. So what funders will look after submitting the program advisory committee of SERB, right? Of course, they have meetings in every quarter to look at the new CRG and other thematic grant applications. So the funders will look, number one, originality. How original your proposal is. So a novel topic worldwide is so much better than merely trying in India. Some topic which are already tried abroad, we are just emulating that here in India. That makes that doesn't have that much impact. You see, for instance, sargassum is a widely known seaweed species. It's a brown seaweed species. So anti-breast cancer potentials of sargassum has already been done so many teams around the world, right? Well, your justification is that those studies were done in Japan or Germany or the US. No one did that work here in India, so I would like to propose that it's a novel. Not really, it's not really that novel, because the same genus studies have already been done abroad, right? So merely trying a different parameter here in India doesn't increase the novelty, right? So look for such fields. So this comes early on, right? Even deciding which topic to propose it, right? While brainstorming, prioritize something really novel throughout the world. Second important thing that the funders look is relevance. So how relevant the topic is. For instance, if you are proposing a topic on communication in India using Morse code, next generation 5G, using 5G to transmit the Morse code, for instance, is it a relevant topic? No, not at all, because Morse code is now officially retired. So instead of writing something which is really old technology, or for instance, if you're a population geneticist and you're proposing you know a new proposal, and the methodology section, you're saying that I'm going to do RFLP, riff lip analysis, or RAPD. you know uh, oh, by the way, all these techniques are obsolete. No one does these things any longer. Microsatellite you can work if you are looking at the population level structure or the whole genome sequencing, or at least the barcode level. That is what is accepted in taxonomy these days, right? RFLP is the resolution power is very low, so the relevance is extremely important, right? Currently relevant topic prioritize, right? Beware of whatever is obsolete, and there is no point in doing the same obsolete topics again and again. Remember, the PAC member, the program advisory committee members, are smart guys and girls, right? Ladies and gentlemen, rather. They are very well up to date with what is happening in the world, right? So beware of it. Yeah. And the third important criterion the funders will look is the feasibility of this study. Existing infrastructure in your institution is sufficient to carry out this study? Yes or no? That is very, very important thing. And also, how much you're asking the money for doing this analysis, to outsource it. Of course, you don't really have to have all the facility. You can outsource some of the more sophisticated analysis, for instance, genome sequencing, right? Except few institutes in India with, genome sequencing is not possible. So you can outsource it. So no problem in it. But if you're planning to outsource even like PCR amplification, then the funders will be not that keen on funding that proposal, because PCR is like everywhere it has, if you're working with some kind of a biological research. So such simple thing, or storage facility, the refrigerator. So those things are really basic. And if you're proposing to outsource these things, then that is going to have negative impact on your proposal. Okay, beware of that. And also prior work. So have you done some prior work on this field or not? And how qualified you as a PI to execute the proposal, to undertake this research grant writing, right? In case it gets funded, are you really qualified to take it? So that's very important. So if you are proposing something which is not really in your field, yeah, then it's going to be really tricky to get it funded. So in such cases, it makes sense to add a co-PI who is specialized in the relevant field in which you're applying. For instance, you're a phycologist, algal taxonomist like me. I'm proposing to work on, prostate cancer, anti-prostate cancer, potentials of seaweed. So it makes sense for me to add a co-PI who is pretty good with cancer screening of natural products, or natural products chemist, right? Rather than I claim that I can do all this work myself. Then the funders will look, okay, how about my, my credentials, my past publications? Do I have relevant publications in all the fields that is part of the proposal? So that's very, very important, okay? And finally, the prospect. So after executing this particular research proposal, the project, what is the ultimate outcome of it? Outcome of this proposal, So that is the prospect. So is it going to result in some commercialization and IPR, like a patent, or some kind of a new product in the market? Or if you're working with environmental related topic, or ethics, philosophy, or politics, or economics, so does it result in some policy recommendation? Yes, that is also a prospect. So you can think of that and explain that in your proposal. That will hugely increase the impact of your grant. Okay. So now let us dissect the grant proposal into different sections. The first section is, of course, the title. And of course, you need to brainstorm it. It's not that easy to decide which title to decide. You need to spend considerable time in Google Scholar or Scopus or Web of Science, right? To make sure that the title is original and precise. It has to be specific. It has to be precise, right? So yeah, that deciding the title is very crucial, because most of the time, especially with the international grant calls, the funders will only look at the title, and then they decide if the title is really interesting, intuitive, and relevant to that field. Then only they will read the rest of the proposal. So the title is a do or die aspect of your grant. Okay, so beware of it. So come up with a very creative title. Next part is objective. Use bullet points or numbered list. That's very important. The objective, don't write an essay in objective section. That is never appreciated. And again, like title, be precise and specific on your objective. What are your main objective? You can even have sub objectives. So it makes sense that objectives are lesser than what you intend to achieve, right? If you achieve more than what is there in your objective, that is good for you as a PI. But if you say that, okay, these are my objective with a big objective, around 10 or 15 objectives, you're being too optimistic, then at the end of your proposal, at the end of your project, right, if you fail to achieve either one of these objective, you are in trouble. That project will be doomed as a failure. So it's always better to be humble in your the objectives, but not too humble. If the objective looks too basic, then the funders will not be happy to fund it, right? So you need uh, a good borderline, not too humble, not too basic, and not too much advanced, not too no, don't be overconfident about achieving all these objectives. So yeah, so have a balanced objective list. That's very important. Then comes a review of literature. It's extremely important to be up to date. Up to date means till today, what are the new reviews and new publications in the field that you're proposing? And don't miss the latest and important citations worldwide. Latest and important. Important would also mean older, but extremely important, relevant, papers like in 1990s or 80s or so, right? If the paper is extremely important to the topic of your proposal, don't miss. And if there are some new papers, new studies published last week exactly on that topic, but elsewhere in the world, don't miss, right? So that is really important. And for citations, either in text citation, also for bibliography, the final reference list, use a referencing manager software. This tip is really important, okay? EndNote is what I use, but also Zotero and Mendeley. These are also alternative. It doesn't cost you money. Zotero and Mendeley are free, but EndNote is costly, okay? These days, I recommend generally to my students Zotero. Zotero is really good and ethical. Mendeley has a questionable ethics in it, So Zotero is pretty good. It's completely free. And if you don't know how to use this Zotero, you can just learn it. You can just search on YouTube. There are hundreds of videos available how to use Zotero. Okay. And all this software will also let you do this in text citation. And in case that one proposal didn't materialize, don't be disappointed. And at least you can save a lot of your time while resubmitting it to another funder. With this citation manager, in one click, you can completely change the citation style. That's a big advantage. Okay. And add a table or two summing up key publications on the topic in the review of literature section. So one table or another table, one table on the species, another table on the biomolecules, whatever. It all depends upon your field of interest, your core competency, right? And yeah, so a tabular summary is always appreciated. So if you add a table, that means, okay, the person has been intentional in developing the proposal. That is what the general feeling that PAC people get it. Okay. And also add a schematic illustration or, the diagram, right? If you are working in a scientific field, for example, observational study or experimental study, how the experiment is going to work, the schema, right? Usually I like to work with Adobe Illustrator. Some people prefer Corel Draw. And of course, there are so many such vector graphics softwares available. Some are free. And even there are cloud-based online tools available. Okay. For example, Pigma, right? So you can use that tools for coming out with some good illustration on the schema. So usually this schematic illustration in review of literature, and also you can add that in a methodology too, right? In review of literature, usually schema sums up our current understanding of the basic biology or whatever basic science. For example, if you're proposing on cancer, so what are the current understanding of the cancer pathways, and where exactly your new proposal fits in, or which target you're trying to find ligand to, right? All those things you can work on it. And if you're a chemist or a biochemist or a pharmaceutical scientist, right? So you can also include some molecular structures in it, right? So if you think that some chemists are the pack members, then definitely adding few structures are going to have going to impact it much better, to increase the impact so much higher, right? So you can develop these molecular structures. You can draw it using softwares like ChemDraw, okay? And if your proposal is about computational biology or computer sciences, right, or computer engineering, for instance, adding few code makes sense. You know, uh, C++ or Python, whatever the code which you are going to tweak in your proposal, you can write it, no problem. And rather than no problem, it substantially increase the value of your proposal. Okay, so consider adding all these things in it. And at the end of your review of literature, you have to identify the knowledge gaps. So these are the lacunae that nobody ever in the world has worked. And I would like to fill that knowledge gap using the proposed undertaking. So that is, that increases the cohesiveness, the connection between various components of your research proposal. Okay. So identify the knowledge gaps and lacunae towards the end of your proposal. And in methodology section, as I told you earlier too, use a graphical schema, flow chart in the methodology section. For example, this is taken from my own proposal on the core research grant, CRG of SERB. Okay, so yeah, so after collecting the sample, what will I do? Which are the various techniques which I'm going to use, right? So yeah, it's bifurcating the chemical as well as molecular phylogenetic work two ways. So yeah, this kind of things you can easily generate. So it need not be hi-fi graphics, so avoid it. That is my suggestion. Fancy graphics in 3D effect and all are frowned upon by the expert committee. Okay, so that shows that okay, you are not that serious, you're something like childish. Yeah, so yeah, stick to the basic, but include the flow chart. So basically be a scholar and show that you are actually very serious scholar proposing to undertake this grant. Okay, so that's really important. And methodology also have to be very specific in sense, if you're working with biomedical sciences, who are your cohort? So basically the target population, gender, are you planning to include transgenders in your study? And which hospitals you're going to do? Did you properly randomize the study? All those things. If you're like me working on taxonomy, then which species are your target? Or is it a taxonomy? Which taxonomic level is mine? I have to justify that first. Am I working at species level or genus level or family or order? Right? If you're into survey like thing, like for example public perception survey, which I did few times. One of my paper is on public perception of evolution in India. Another paper is on student perception on the online teaching during COVID-19 time. I published that in frontiers in education. Okay, so all those studies I have to specify what is my inclusion exclusion criteria. So whenever there is a questionnaire survey included, so who are the survey participants? Are you getting? So which are excluded, which are included? That's really important. And which geographical area? You can usually I add a map of India with exact locations where I'm undertaking that sampling as part of this proposal, right? And also statistical power calculations are really important to derive how much sample size, that is n, is important, right? So how much is the expected or required sample size at particular statistical power? In order to get this much statistical power, how much sample size is important, right? So that you can use a standard calculator. I'll just show that in a while. And also what are your negative and positive control? And if you're working on a drug trial, then what is your placebo? All these things you have to specifically include in your proposal. And what is a statistical significant level of your study? Usually for biomedical sciences or life science studies in general, it's 0.05 is the threshold p-value, which is equivalent to 95% significance level, right? Or confidence level. Well, that is only for life sciences. How about physics, right? So physics work at 5 sigma threshold. So basically it is 0.000001. That is the p value. That is the threshold p value, right? So significance level differs with the subject domain. So you have to explicitly state it. And what kind of test of significance are you planning to undertake? That's very important. Okay. And in case you are proposing some experiments, I highly recommend you to adopt a randomized control trial. Nowadays, randomized control trial, the so-called RCT, is the current gold standard in wherever the experiments are included. So usually RCT used to be for only for biomedical sciences, but nowadays it doesn't matter. Even physics, chemistry, even humanities. For example, Abhijit Banerjee, the Indian Nobel Prize winner, right? He got the Nobel Prize in economics. He used RCT on interventional scenario in school education in Gujarat and elsewhere in India and Africa, right? Duffel did the work in Africa. Yeah. So RCT is really important. That is a current gold standard wherever experiment is included. RCT is not applicable if you are working on observational study or or exploratory studies like me. I went to Antarctic. I did exploration there. There is no experiment. There is no p-value testing included. Right? So wherever this experiment is included, then RCT makes sense. Okay. So yeah, stick with RCT. And pre-registration of study, that is really important. These days, international funding agencies insist you to pre-register your study, right? So what is the N, what are your significance level, and what test that you're going to use, all those things you have to specify. Even objectives have to be registered in servers like Lab Archives. It's a free place, okay? And also data archival. So whenever you generate the data, for example, DNA sequencing, you generate some electropherograms, you can put all the raw data, so raw microphotography images or raw output of spectrophotometer, or plate reader. All those things you can put it in your own notebook, in the lab archive. And whenever you upload the things, it will give you a DOI number. And the catch is that you can never ever able to change it once you pre-register the study, or when you do the data archival, you cannot change the data. Raw data remains there forever, right? With the DOI number, you can only append the revisions to that, right? So that increases likelihood that you are not practicing some academic dishonesty, right? Like data manipulation and all, right? This is very important. I strongly suggest everyone to pre-register their study and also explicitly state where your data is going to be archived. That will also significantly increase the impact of your grant proposal. And the preliminary work, I told you, the pilot works or preliminary works will add substantial value to the proposal. And also it bolsters the statistical power calculation. So it aids in, the formula is N is equal to 2C multiplied with S by W squared. So C is a constant. Basically, you can look it up from a table. That constant depends upon the required power. Usually 80% power is good enough, and required significance level. So usually for biologists, it's 95% significance level is good enough. Okay. S is the expected standard deviation. How will you know it? So that is the reason why you need to do a pilot study. So once you complete the pilot study, you will get a standard deviation. That is your expected standard deviation. And W is the effect size, the expected effect size, the width of the confidence interval. So a pilot study will enable you to come with precise number of samples required to execute the proposal. That's really important. You can use online calculator like this one, Giga calculator. Just input all these things and then it will get you the exact number of sample required for it. Okay, and also expected outcome of your proposal. So at the end of your grant, your end of your project, what is the outcome? So I've already added this, we discussed that early on. So basically how the outcome is going to fill the lacunae that have already been identified in the review of literature. So in the review of literature, we have already identified the knowledge gap, the knowledge lacunae, and you have to explicitly state that the outcome of your proposal will fill that knowledge gap. That's really important. That increases the cohesiveness, logical cohesion in your whole proposal, you see. And also discuss the avenues of prospection. For example, bioprospection, if you're working with biological samples. So that means prospection means how to make money out of it. For instance, commercialization or intellectual property rights, patenting, all those things are avenues of prospection. And if applicable, also discuss avenues of policy recommendations. Most of my proposal, I also include policy recommendations on blue economy. It's a key document of the government of India. So how that draft blue economy can be refined from the output of my own research undertaking, right? So it tremendously add value to your proposal. Okay, so that expected outcome section, pay a lot of attention to it. And many of the grant calls will ask you to come out with a precise timeline. So timeline is like a commitment that from this month to this month I'm going to work on this task. So usually tasks are added here in the rows, while columns are basically the time. So as you can see, this is taken from my own CRG proposal. These are project month 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, then 24 and 36. So total 3-year project. As you know, core research grant is for 3 years, right? So at each month, so these are the expected tasks that I'm going to complete. For example, recruitment of staff, then literature survey, sampling, then experimental work, data analysis, report preparation, and final reporting. See, so at the end of each year, I know that I have to submit the report. And this is going to be the final report submission. So overall, that is like a graphical summarization of your timeline. So you can use this kind of style, something called PERT chart or grant chart, GRANTT. Very interesting coincidence, right? Grant is the name of the person who invented this thing, though it is used often for the grant proposals. Yeah. And so we are nearing the end of the grant writing. So towards the end, the proposal will ask you to put a budget. So budget with the justification for each money that you are asking, why you need that. That is your justification. So get some quotations of equipment or reagents. And in case you're applying to Government of India proposal project call, then GEM is now the gold standard, right? We are not allowed to buy anything outside the GEM. And to get quotations from GEM, it's very simple. Just go to the GEM online and look it up. For example, Taq polymerase, search it and take a printout of the page. That is a quotation that is valid. Okay. So you don't need to take even a printout. You save your paper, just save it as a PDF and upload all these quotations there. Okay. So whatever the money is there, you indicate that in your grant proposal. That's really important. And in case you're applying for startup call or cloud funding, or the funding from the foundations like Gates Foundation, then you can upload the statement of support or commitment from the prospective consumer. That's really important. Who are the prospective consumer who have committed to buy your product? This is more important for the startups and cloud computing, not really for the foundation. Okay, this is really important because the startup success is all about who is really going to be the end user of the venture that you're trying to start up, right? beware, 99% of the startups are doomed to fail, right? So that is why this letter of support or commitment letter from the prospective consumer will tremendously add value to your proposal, okay? And also provide precise revenue projections, impact assessment, etc., if applicable. So revenue projection, like your company, if you're a registered company, you're applying for it. So how much is your last annual turnover and ITR? Last ITR also you might need to upload the income tax returns, and also how much is your projected revenue projections in the next year and the third or fourth, in one decade. So yeah, that is going to be interesting and important too. And impact assessment too, right? What is the impact, potential environmental impact your proposed project undertaking is going to have, or what is the impact on the local economy? All those things you can develop that, okay? And also to enclose relevant permissions like ethical clearance or environmental clearance if applicable. If you're working in biomedical sciences, ethical clearance is really important, especially in case you're working on animal studies, right? Mouse or Sinorhabditis elegans, right? The worms or Drosophila. Well, ethics are a little bit lesser, but yeah, mouse or the rabbits. Of course, you need to have proper clearance, and it's especially important in case you're trying to do that in the human clinical trial. Of course, that is, you really need special permissions for that. And also for environmental clearance, especially, that's really important, right? In case you are planning to execute this proposal from some of the protected areas, for example, the national parks, right? You need to have the permission. So without the permission, how can you simply, put a proposal that I'm going to undertake it, right? What if the permission is denied at a later stage? Right, that is really important. And budget can also depends upon the funders. Budget can also ask. We can also ask, the overhead charges as part of the budget, right? Overhead means the institute, right? If, for example, if I'm planning to do that project in my university, so to execute, I would need to use the water. I also need to use the space and also the electricity. So all those things, the incidental expenses, some amount I can share with my university. Usually it is 5 to 10 percentage, the overhead. That can also be part of your proposal. Okay, that's important. Yeah. And yeah, final section of your proposal is going to be references. As I told you, use a referencing software like Zotero, highly recommended, or EndNote. Okay, so for in-text citation as well as for the references. And usually, in case the funders didn't ask for the referencing style, you can stick with MLA style, that is basically modern language association style for humanities, and also literature, grant proposals, and APA style. Right now it is APA 4th edition, American Psychological Association. That is for sciences, right? In case your proposal is falling under STEM area, right? Mathematics or technology, engineering, right? You can put that into APA style. And intentionally add citations from current and previous calendar year. So I think that is the tip as an insider of all this funding grant call, right? For example, ANR, right? French ANR. We have been instructed to check, the references, right? In case the new references are completely missing, be skeptical. That means that the whoever wrote the proposal is not up to date, right? So be intentional, add some proposals from the current and previous calendar years. For example, if you're submitting it in this year 2023, there should be few references from 23 and 22. Okay, that will substantially increase the value of your proposal. And another one, then the next tip is to have, of course, it's not part of your proposal. Suggested reviewer list is very important. Maintain this reviewer list inside your, somewhere. Usually I like to work with the OneNote, right? random notes. You can just put it, you can easily search it out, right? So have a list of reviewers ready so that you can copy and paste it while submitting the grant application, right? Definitely the uh, online portal will ask you to put your suggested reviewers, and some of the funders like especially the foreign funders, yeah, Welcome Trust, for example, Welcome Trust will ask you which are the reviewers which you want to oppose in case you have some conflict of interest, for example, professional rivalry. Yeah, you can note it down. These are the reviewers I don't want my proposal to be sent to because of the conflict of interest, right? So yeah, make that list very readily available so that you can save some time. Okay. And final tip of grant writing is to have multiple proposals ready, and whenever a new call comes, be ready to submit it. Be proactive in your grant proposal writing. I think that is really important tip. Yeah. So instead of knee-jerk reactionary in general, it's always better to respond. Yeah, be prepared. The YAR is a Scouts motto, isn't it? Bharat Scouts and Guides, where I have been part of. Yeah, I really love that organization. So be prepared. So that means that, just don't wait for the call deadline to approach you, and put all these in your Google Calendar. Whenever the potential grant calls, right? When the next call comes. So if you know only this year's call and the deadline is coming in next 1 week, don't be discouraged, no problem. Put that as a recurring event in the Google Calendar. And, make sure that you're being reminded around 4 months prior to the grant deadline. So, yeah, for the next year's grant call, preparations should start today, to make an excellent winning grant proposal, taking cues, taking tips from this video that you're watching. Okay, so yeah, that is really important. And you do check my YouTube show called Curiosity, in which I do cover several grant call, both national and international. Okay, and with the deadline, all those things. Okay, so and with the link to the original call. So do check out. This is the website called bit.ly/bastf. Okay, bit.ly/bastf. That is a link to my YouTube channel. You can just search out my name, Felix Bast, in the YouTube and click subscribe to my channel. My channel is science centered, and there is no ad in it. Okay, it's completely ad free, I promise. Yeah. And yeah, that's it. And one more tip on the top of final tip would be, don't be discouraged. Okay, so chances of getting this grant is very low, substantially low. Beware of it. There are a lot of competitors in every call, and also the budget is not increasing, it's decreasing. It's a worldwide tendency. Yeah. So yeah, the calls do come, but number of grants being awarded are really limited, right? So 16 grant which I got till date, 16. And do you know how many calls did I try? Approximately 60 applications I submitted to get like this, 16, 17 grants to win. So yeah, don't be discouraged at all. Yeah, so failure is part of the game. Okay, but learn something from that failure, right? So be intentional with your grant application. That's really important tip. I hope this video helped you. So thank you for this opportunity, and thank you. Have a nice time. Bye.